And I might just stand back here while I welcome to the stage the panelists that you're here to hear from. Natasha J. is founder of Haircare. We also have Paul Waddy, who's here from Showpo, and Mick Spencer, CEO and founder of ONTHEGO, and Mike Reid from DHL Express. So, good evening, and welcome, obviously. Thank you so much for coming to DHL's Start Me Up event, panel discussion. I wish I could have said that with a little bit of Mick Jagger swagger, but I don't want to start off on a bad foot. So, and I'm sure we'll all be, humming a lot of Stones tunes on our way home. So we'll just leave it at that. I am Nadine Blaney. I'm news director of Your Money. So we are on channel 95, free to air. And you may have known us in a previous incarnation as Sky News Business. And we still are on Foxtel, channel 601. So I am, really pleased to be with you tonight and here with these panel members because, look, on the channel we speak with a lot of the nation's business leaders. We speak with, the people who are all in the know when it comes to corporate Australia, when it comes to politics, when it comes to business and politics. But in the newsroom, when we have people like you all come in and, tell us your stories and speak to us, that's where we really get inspired. And that's where we really get the juices going. And those are the stories that, we're really interested in telling in large part, along with some of the other ones, because, it really is really exciting for all of us because you're, starting out in many cases, established in some, but, really starting out. And I suppose that's what this is about. It's about not just starting up, not just how you get started, but really when you start to look outward to the world. And I have had a little bit of help coming up with a few sort of stats because what we're talking about, as you know, is growing internationally. And there is, so much information out there about this very topic, so you can watch Your Money. We've got lots of experts on. You can go to ebooks, podcasts, you name it. It's almost, too much information. You can get sort of information paralysis. You don't know where to look. So tonight we're going to get some personal stories, hopefully, and just really, tips and tricks and tools that you can use to look outward and grow your business. Just a reminder, there will be a Q&A session at the end of this. So if you do have any questions, just make a mental note, put it in your phone, whatever you like to do. And of course, in the networking, very friendly people so far. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer your question. So just before we get any further, let's properly introduce tonight's panel and what everybody does. So Paul Waddy, Head of Operations at Showpo, give a little wave. It is, if you don't know it, most of you probably do, it's an e-fashion retailer. And it really targets the millennial market. It is selling into more than 100 international markets around there.
Correct.
Yeah, and warehoused in Sydney and LA.
Yep, our own warehouse in Sydney and 3PL in LA. Yep.
Yeah, great. So you're an e-com operator. Your focus is largely on supply chain logistics, management, international business and consumers, customer focus, obviously.
Yep, I think that's a pretty good summary. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
check. I'm doing well so far. All right, Mick Spencer, founder and CEO, not bad to have after your name at 28 years old. ONTHEGO, it's pretty impressive growth as well, 300% year on year. It's a multi-million-dollar custom sports and uniform apparel company. This is one of those garage stories. You hear them a lot, I'm sure. 2012, I think you had $120 to your name.
$150.
Oh, well, there's where the difference came.
Business registrations were $142 back then.
So you could buy yourself a coffee. In your parents' garage in Canberra, started out, you wanted to take on an established industry, and you wanted to do it using technology and also with a bit of a social bent. Hopefully we'll get there through the discussion. 40 staff later, and you'll recognize some of the names of his clients, which includes Hockey Australia, Fitbit, LinkedIn. I'm sure I'm missing some, but pretty good summary.
100,000 more. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. He's also an author. Ask him about his book. It's called Start Before You're Ready. Natasha J. is the founder of Haircare, hairdresser turned entrepreneur. That's good. And it's an organic line, and you started that from home. after you know, a very personal experience that impacted your own hair. So you started the business to solve a problem, which is, of course, the best way that you can do it. It's not quite a garage story, but it is a dining room table story where you were packing and sending and shipping, and we'll touch upon, I guess, why it matters that you've got a unique product, you've got an organic, plant-based product, and why that's so important. So you're now in 100 salons across Australia, the UK. You ship to all over the world.
Both in Australia and overseas. A lot of salons, yep.
Okay. And we've got Mike Reid, who is sitting beside me, and he is an e-commerce expert at DHL, multiple countries across the network, including the UK and Australia. You are sort of cross industries, so you can talk to us about everything, I think, and
Whatever you want to know.
that's good. I think our audience deserves to know that you are a former professional rugby player in New Zealand. Just putting it out there.
I'll pay you later.
All right, so being the journalist that I am, the who, what, where, when, how. We'll set the scene with that. This is where the stats come in. And I do have footnotes if anyone's interested. Just to summarize, we want to get to the bottom of why we're doing this. And what you're hoping to cash in on is the fact that by next year, 2020, the e-commerce market is expected to be valued at about $900 billion, and it's growing at about 25% per year. So that's why you want in, I would imagine. Who you can access, so in New Zealand, I think it's 58% of consumers made a cross-border purchase. In Canada, that was 57. In the UK, I think 38. US, 31, something like that. So that's who you can sell to. And why do people buy online from overseas? They do it because they want a better price, they want a unique product, something that they can't source in their local market, and they also want to discover new and interesting products. People want something that everybody else doesn't have, so that's how they get it. That's why they come online, and that's why they buy overseas. So we could talk now, at the risk of losing you, conversion funnels, all these sort of, really sort of key words that people talk about when they talk about making their mark online, building their online presence and converting it into sales. But I thought we'd start by talking about an egg. So this is not any egg, this is the egg. I'm sure you've all heard about it. We're obsessed with this story in the newsroom. The egg on Instagram that has got more likes than any other post in history. So my question to you is, Mick, maybe I'll start with you. How on earth can an e-commerce entrepreneur make a mark online in this topsy-turvy, crazy world than an egg?
Oh, wow. Okay, I was wondering whether it was about how we're selling eggs.
No. How can you compete?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing is what you said earlier, which is, great businesses are founded by big problems, and in today's market, you've got to continue to solve a problem for the customer. So for us, personally, everyone's got a different journey, but for us, it was about being just completely different. Our industry was full of companies that weren't really online. They only had online catalogs, and you had to fill in forms to order uniforms or pick an item and choose a color and upload logos and do your own designing wasn't available. And we knew there was a market for teams and businesses and groups who knew what they wanted when they wanted to design apparel for their cause, and they wanted to do it themselves, and there wasn't anywhere that could do that. So it was about being very different and figuring out a business model off that, and then making your customers champion of your product and service.
And Natasha, when you were starting out, you were solving a problem as well. And did you know that this is how you were going to go about it? Was e-commerce, e-retailing, that was your next goal?
Yes, definitely. And I think when you say, how do you compete with something like the egg, I think what everyone has to remember is, firstly, we live in Australia and everyone overseas loves us, loves Bondi Beach, loves us. That's your first advantage, is the fact that we're in Australia. And second, yes, for me it was solving the problem. I think having a hairdressing background with customer service, I could really speak to my customers and explain things to them and go back and forth. And it's a little bit different if you were to go to another hair product where they're just asking a question, they get a really general answer. So I make it quite specific when I talk back to them. And then once you have that trust and that relationship, then it doesn't matter where they are around the world.
And when it comes to, I guess, picking a platform, if you're trying to build an online presence, a social media presence, perhaps, I mean, Mick, do you have Instagram? Do you go Facebook? What's your favorite platform?
We're across all platforms, and I think that on each one there's a different type of follower and different type of customer, and it's really just important about understanding who that is. But I definitely don't have as big of an Instagram following as this guy's business. But yeah, I think it's very important to understand that all the different channels are very different, and it might not be the exact same follower on each one. So you do need a bit of a different strategy for each social media platform, and also even more complicated, it's obviously different in different markets as well. So what people in Australia are looking for on Facebook might be different to what people in the US are looking at on, through Instagram. So it's about understanding where, who's following you and why, and doing more with that. And
so, Paul, you have the joy of trying to figure out how to appeal to millennials, really, on social media.
Yeah, so obviously, if you use social media, there's a fair chance you've probably come across something from Showpo in the past. So we've got about 3 million or so followers, predominantly across Instagram and Facebook. But we're constantly evolving and looking at other channels. Facebook and Instagram are moving so quickly as well and becoming more expensive. So, we're always looking at new channels, whether it's YouTube or Pinterest or whatever it might be. And I think in the opening remarks, it was mentioned that you need to be nimble, and I think we're pretty good at being nimble and trying to be one step ahead and stay in touch with our market and understand what's coming next, because it's moving so quickly.
So as a founder, Natasha, I mean, where do you put most of your focus? Is it in the product particularly? Is it in the customer service? It is in making sure that as an e-commerce business, your website is up to scratch, you're investing in new technologies?
I'd still have to say number one is customer service and number two is products. I'm always thinking, okay, what's the next thing? It's something that, it might just be for myself, like, I hate this about my hair, or a lot of people tell me they hate this, so what can I do? How can I go and research the next thing that's coming? Exactly what you said, you've always got to be on top of what's coming.
And I think that there's a social media story for everything. And part of that is being genuine in your story. We had the social media fail, I think, of one of the Jenners or Kardashians. I think it was Kendall. She was going to have a big social media reveal. It turned out that she was just, really launching her own career, trying to expand her presence, if that's even possible. So for you, being a business owner that, really started out with a very personal story, how important is to you to sort of still have that story as being front and center and being part of your whole sort of marketing strategy?
Well, actually, I didn't start like that in the very beginning. I'm quite a private person. I don't even have my own social media. So the way that came about is I found that by communicating to my customers, I heard their story was very similar to mine. And I felt like, they would no longer just say, hi, I'd like some advice. They'd say, Tash, what do you recommend? So I thought to myself, well, now it's time for me to make this a little bit more about me and add that personal touch to it. And I think that around the time I did that, the business really grew a lot, because people then can relate to you. You're not just a company that they don't know. They're actually having a relationship with me. So I think the more you can put yourself forward and show who you are, and people love behind the scenes stuff. So even if you're not going to be the face, just show your story and what you're doing and hard days at work and all that sort of stuff. I think that really helps.
Michael, you've had a lot of experience across different e-commerce brands and different industries in Australia and the UK. So we get really focused, I think, on social media when it comes to, promoting and advertising and getting your brand known. I mean, what do you think is the most sort of successful way in your experience?
Well, I think the social media way is now what we're seeing more and more of. I think what you said earlier about being genuine, though, is probably the one thing, particularly since being in Australia, some people who have, they just use whoever they can find as a celebrity to post their product or whatever it is, and it might be here for 5 minutes, but then it's gone somewhere else, sort of thing. So I think picking who you want to work with, making sure that it aligns with who your brand is and what your brand wants to portray itself as is probably the biggest part of getting that right. Is whatever the platform's going to be, just being genuine with who you use.
Okay, so we all love buying stuff online, I think. I do. It's really opened up the world, not only to us as buyers, but obviously you as sellers. So Mick, what is it, do you think, about a website that makes consumers willing to keep clicking, willing to keep clicking through until it's a purchase done?
Well, it's daily effort. There's so much to it. I think, the most important thing is firstly having a team that's obsessed with the customer experience, and that's really important as a business owner, is actually being passionate about it, because it's not something you can just do once a month or once a quarter and check in and hope it's all good. You need a dedicated team to be pretty obsessed, and we have so much, we have people watching videos of how people are interacting with the website every day. We're looking at, data points through the site, how to make it more simple, and how to get, and then also surveying customers as well, and really trying to understand, what they're constantly asking and where they're getting stuck. So there's a lot to it, but I think it's important to understand why people are coming to your site. Are they there to browse, or are they there to really, solve a problem? And it's different for every website, but for us, most of the time people are already prepared that they need something for an event, or they need something for a season. So it's all about inspiration, about what other users have designed on the platform that day or that month. It's then about helping them get to the product really easily, and then stepping them through. And we had a lot of challenges early on because we started getting really great traffic, but our conversion rate really sucked, and we realised that not everyone wants to design stuff themselves. There is a portion of the market that do want it done for them. So we introduced a service where we do it for you as well. And there's just like the crossing the chasm curve. There's a portion of Australia and there's a portion of overseas markets that aren't as intelligent as or self-use as you think they might be. So you need to know things like that. And we had a lot of learnings of that, and it's about, constantly then making iterations. But it just comes down to being obsessed with the customer. And there's so many tools now that you can really easily and affordably actually do that through its analytics and heat mapping and all of that. So, yeah.
Where have the big challenges been at Showpo when it comes to actually conversion?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo what Mick just said. One of my favourite pastimes at Showpo is I sit next to one of our UX specialists, and I'll sit sometimes and just start watching recordings of customers and where they click on the website. So I think that most people starting out in e-commerce will design what they hope is a pretty cool site, but it really is it's your opinion, and you hope that people like it. Whereas where we are now is we have a team that is constantly looking at recordings of the customer, surveying the customer. We're now right into Net Promoter Scores, understanding not just what's your NPS score, your Net Promoter Score, but why. So digging into it and understanding where you can improve. Is it logistics? Is it customer service? Is it product? And then within product, is it sizing? Is it quality? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's just digging deeper, and we're still getting better at that, but it's a particular focus. And also, all of the review sites out there, we report on weekly how we're tracking. Are we going up? And if not, why? It's continuous improvement and scraping data from everywhere to find out what people are saying about us and how we can get better.
I'm not knocking it, but it does sound very techy, especially if you're trying to convert, your customers who perhaps are used to bricks and mortar, perhaps used to a bit more of a touchy-feely customer experience, perhaps want to speak with somebody. I mean, if the customer is first for you, Natasha, how do you not lose that real, real hands-on sort of relationship with your customer?
So similar sort of things, what we do, we also have a Net Promoter Score, and we really pay attention to what that is. If somebody comes back with something negative, then we're on top of that and find out what the issue is. In terms of not losing them and having that interaction that you'd have if it was a person that walks in a store, is just simply having the Facebook Messenger button, and I'm sure you've got that and you get a lot of that all the time. But that's a really simple thing that's on the website, on the home page. Another thing that I have is a little inbuilt, survey that they can sort of fill out and say, is the site too slow? What's happening? What did you not like about it? 5 questions to work out what the problem is. And I also have a quiz on the site, so they can put in a couple of their questions and that gives them a little bit of advice. But I think the main thing is having that Facebook Messenger. Everyone's on their phone. They're generally always logged into Facebook. I'm sure someone right now is on Facebook. So, you can have that conversation and something that you have to have. You can't sort of say, well, that's too hard, because it's harder for them to log into their email or to get on their email, wait for an email, whereas Facebook Messenger is really quick. So you have to take the time to do it. You have to have someone there answering the questions and giving that level of customer service support. Really important.
Yeah.
And, I guess when it comes to some of the difficulties, you said that people love Australian brands. We know that. But there's difficulties, isn't there, Mike, when it comes to being in Australia as well? I mean, do people get put off by foreign currencies, by currency conversions, by all the other stuff that they don't really want to think about when they're just wanting something to show up, at their doorstep?
Well, I think that's when, in any country that you're in, but Australia here, like you go to sell online, you're probably very much, I'm just going to focus on Australia because it's easy, same currency, same time zone, don't have to worry about duties and taxes. And it's just comfortable for the retailer. And I think that's where we've had to change our businesses to try and be the nurturer or the consultant to those retailers, that it's not as big and scary as you think it might be, and that in partnering we can work together and we can overcome obstacles. We were talking earlier about every country, there's something different to it, and probably you find that most retailers sell consistently to the same types of countries. So the conversations we're having, the stories we're telling them about other people who've been successful are probably going to align very similar to what their businesses are doing as well. And if that's not the case and it's something random that a country pops up that they never expected to get a sale from, I mean, guitar, for example, like earlier, you may have no expectation of the fact that you're ever going to take a sale from guitar, but it happens and it comes off, and you don't have to ever go there and see the customer, but you can still sell to them, and we can use the support at the other end to, I guess, help them through that process with the local knowledge at the other side of it. So it's trying to just portray that it's not as scary as it sounds when you go into it.
Mm-hmm. Mick, you picked up on, or you mentioned something earlier about having technology, so not just, the website itself, but leveraging technology to allow people to understand what is going to arrive, so feel comfortable with executing the purchase, I suppose, so that they're not going to sweat too much or look silly in it. I guess that goes for Showpo as well. I mean, how do you sort of leverage those additional technological tools to make the purchase palatable?
Yeah, and we're in a really difficult one with that, because actually our average basket size is 13 units per order online, because most of the time people are ordering for other people as well. So, when Johnny, the captain of the Albury Wodonga Soccer Legends, orders his jerseys, he's usually doing it for his teammates as well. So it is a challenge for sure. And so what's important is, we're actually deploying at the moment kiosks around the country in sports stores and office works and the like, where people can actually touch and feel product, and also design in store or online. But so that's one part. But we also have a lot of people who order online and have never seen product, and so it's about we've got our own software, which is 3D integrated design tools that does give a bit more of a lifelike version of the product. So it gives them a bit more comfort. And then just really well integrated size charts. And because we manufacture everything ourselves, we've got in-house garment techs, fashion designers, pattern makers. If they have shopped with us before, they'll always be a consistent size across every product. And then explaining stuff well through video online, through imagery, through model inspiration, and interactive size charts and stuff. So we do our best. We're not perfect though. There's a long way to go.
Do you fix people's spelling mistakes?
We do have a really, really smart quality control team before everything goes to production, and usually that's to make sure that there's no sensory images or logos uploaded. We get a lot of random stuff uploaded every single day. I spend some mornings just scrolling through, and I'm
Just for fun.
astonished. Yeah, like sometimes I just laugh at people's designs, and then sometimes I'm like, wow, you'd actually wear that and use that. And then sometimes you're like, wow, that's actually, those colours look really good together, you know. So you can learn a lot, but we've also got to be careful. We have a lot of IP issues because sometimes there's thousands of logos uploaded a day to our platform, and you know, people can't infringe on other people's logos. So we've got to sense that. But spelling mistakes, 99.8% of them get picked up. But we do put it back to the customer to be comfortable with the proof. So because it is made to order, it is made for them. We can't sell, you know, DHL soccer team stuff with Reid on the back to toll, you know. So we have a pretty kind of I wouldn't say strict, I'd say fair, but we actually would prefer to prevent the sale if it's not right for them.
And refunds, returns. I mean, logistically at Showpo, how do you sort of keep that to a minimum? How do you overcome that sort of challenge?
Yeah, it's a big challenge because 30% of our business is export. So you know, when talking about how do you secure the sale, I mean, probably one of the first pages possibly they'll look at your shipping and your returns policy. So it could be a barrier for a customer to place an order with a company all the way over in Australia and not have comfort around the returns policy. So, I mean, that's something we spend a lot of time on is working on our returns. You know, so for instance, the US is quite a big market for us. So we have local returns in the US, we have local returns in New Zealand, and we have local returns in the UK, which is a warehouse basically processing the return in the local country. Meaning that the customer will get their return processed, you know, in a day or two, rather than waiting for the item to be shipped back to Australia. So I suppose it's being serious about the whole supply chain, which includes the reverse logistics, the product coming back, and understanding that can be a real friction point for customers. So the way we combat it is we just try and constantly improve it. We've just launched our own returns portal. We couldn't find one that we liked on the market, so we built our own. It's pretty clever, it's pretty sophisticated. And then we really try and offer great post-purchase support so that if there is an issue, we're there for the customer to try and help them through it. So it's always an issue for anyone in e-commerce, and same as Mick, you know, we want the customer to get it right, and we've got to provide more and more accurate information around product, sizing, because they can't touch the garment, so we need to be, you know, bang on with our garment specs and things like that.
And that's why, Natasha, just in conversation before, you've decided to keep a lot of, you know, your control over the warehousing and the logistics and the distribution of your product.
Yes, so I made the decision that I wanted to keep all of that in-house for various reasons. One being, if a customer in the last minute wants to change something, then I'm able to do that for them instantly. If they've forgotten to add a product or they want to change it, they made a mistake, I can do that for them. I can make the package look pretty and amazing, which third-party logistics don't generally do. And I think one of the biggest things that we were talking about is I think a lot of people use third-party logistics because they think that they're going to save money on rates for shipping, which is definitely not the case. And, you know, you're going to get a good rate doing it yourself. So if you can keep it in-house, and it doesn't go for every business, I'm sure, you know, there's businesses where it's just like impossible to do it. But it's just something that you can do and you can manage. When I've had third-party logistics in the past, I had a lot of errors. Biggest thing was not getting things out on time. So I know that I can get the thing out the door at 5 o'clock if I want to. If someone urgently needs something the next day that's in Australia, I can pack that product at 5 minutes to 5 and take it to the post. So it's that better level of service that I can do for now. And then, you know, hiring staff that can also pack is really good.
You've been reading my diary.
No, I haven't. Is that your diary?
We've just gone in-house as well for exactly the same reasons.
Okay.
Control, and we have all the same problems. We wanted to be able to change orders for customers, and our warehouse used to close at 3. We're now open till midnight, and just
so
doing
the
what
other,
we want.
the other thing as well that with third-party logistics, and I'm not sure if you had this issue, is we can, for no reason in particular, have a weekend where sales have just tripled. And when we go in on Monday, I can then say, okay, my customer service staff, my graphic design guy, the girl next door, my grandma, anyone, you're packing today. So, and we get the orders out. I've never had one day where we haven't sent the orders out that day. So no one waits for their stuff. Whereas if you have third-party logistics, and I'm sure, whether you run a sale or something like that, they don't have the staff there. They can't pull anyone out. So your orders just don't go. So it's really frustrating because obviously the customer doesn't understand that. And sometimes you don't know if you're going to be really busy. So it's definitely something to think about. And, it's not that difficult to do. It sounds really hard, but I'm sure that, you can explain that it's
well worth it.
It is, it's worth it.
Mick, you converted?
Yeah, we actually don't do a lot of warehousing. Because we don't hold stock.
Sure.
So we hold fabric in factories and we make to order. So we don't hold stock. For some big contracts we do. I mean, DHL helped us ship, I think about 18 months ago, about 85,000 units to the UK for Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. It was a big bill from DHL, but a very good project. There's a lot of units. They did do a good job. I did tell the client to be a bit more planned, to ship it a bit slower, but people from
last minute's best.
People from the UK are different. But we did, we did do a bit of intermediary with that. We do, tiny bit of warehousing, but not all. We're more like a data warehouse because all of our products are in virtual products, and then people design it, and then we send it to the factory to make it and freight it, and DHL sends it directly to the customer most of the time. So,
in these conversations, I hate always talking about Amazon. I hate always talking about Amazon on the channel On Your Money, because I feel sometimes like we give Amazon, we do its publicity for it. We give it a lot of free kicks. But when we're talking about shipping around the world from Australia, when you're talking about, having a customer call last minute, or I guess not call, but let you know they need something online, when you're talking about customers buying something from Australia, a country which perhaps they've never, been to, seen, heard of, whatever. I mean, how do you, in your experience, Mike, convince them that they're going to be able to get what they want when they want it, when they could potentially get it from a local supplier in a day or an afternoon, depending on where you live? And also, how do you build that trust and ensure that they do trust you when they've never heard of you before?
Well, I think in this whole process of this buying decision to buy online, there's nothing that's physical about that process. At no point in time do you get to touch the customer as far as in-store or anything like that. So that final delivery, when that box is handed over and the state that it's been in based on how they've packed it and how it's then been shipped, is the initial impression that they get of that retailer. So I guess to answer the second part of the question first is the experience of the physical touch point, which is the delivery, is really important to making sure that the impression that you're instantly received, everything online was really good, the buying process was easy, checkout process was easy, I like the price, everything like that, and then it comes to the end and it never arrives, or it arrives but it looks like it's been stepped on 10 times along the way. Like, it's trying to have that impression that once they have bought from you, okay, look, that process is the impression of the brand. And then I guess the first part is from our side, and what we try to portray to the retailers is make sure that the delivery in no way takes away from what the website's supposed to be about, but make delivery very obvious and very subtle to them. So homepage landing, bang, straight away, express shipping worldwide. Instantly, they don't have to look for it, they don't have to shop for it, but they just know that you walk in the door of the shop, you can buy from the retailer. You're going to go down to the shop down the road and they say, oh, you're from Pakistan, we can't buy from you. You're from New Zealand, we can't buy from you. You're from, So make sure the shop tells them instantly, we're open.
And we can get there.
And we can get there.
When it comes to, the trust angle, there's been so much bad publicity about data breaches. I mean, what do you do at Showpo to ensure that your consumers trust you, that your customers know that you're going to be, taking care of their information?
GDPR has been a hot topic for us. We have a data protection officer, and we've met multiple times to make sure that we're compliant and that everybody that we work with is compliant. All of our suppliers, anyone that we warehouse with, we need to make sure that we're working with people who are GDPR compliant. So we take it really seriously. Touch wood, we're going very well in that area, but we're extremely careful.
Mm-hmm. And Natasha, have you had any bad experience or
No.
challenges in that area?
No, what he said.
That's good. So how do we get, I suppose, what are the deal breakers? What do you think are the deal breakers when you get to that end point, that real conversion?
I guess by the time they've got to, Paul mentioned earlier about the delivery page will be one of the first things they look at. So for us, it's making sure that the retailer has made that price competitive to the start with. They've been transparent and open about what the offering is, how many days it's going to be, 1 to 2 days, 1 to 3 days, whatever the market is that you're selling to, and just making it clear and obvious from the outset. So like I said earlier, landing on the homepage, you know straight away, bang, I can buy. I'm in the US, it's going to be here in 2 days. Like making it seamless from I don't need to shop around and work out how long is it going to take. Can they even sell to my country? Is there a delivery option even available? What am I going to have to do about duties? Gosh, like these kind of things. So just being really educational in a very simplistic way to the customer.
And I mean, have you had, Paul, at Showpo, any experiences where there's different expectations in different markets for how things will arrive?
Well, there definitely is. I mean, the USA has different expectations probably to Australia because they have, mentioned before, Amazon Prime and things like that. They're probably fairly ahead of us in e-commerce in general. So there's a benchmark there that we probably need to catch up to, and we're doing a pretty good job. But we're logistics and delivery. The world's getting smaller, so guys like DHL are getting better, and we're able to get products to customers quickly. But yeah, it's definitely about speed. The customer wants it. They want it now. So we're rolling out, we've rolled out recently same-day delivery, 4-hour delivery. We'll soon be delivering on Saturdays. You can order from us on a Saturday. So it's just, we need to find ways to make the world smaller, get to build our international business, and then just speed, get the product to the customer faster and faster.
You guys all couldn't have had only positive experiences. I mean, what's something that's been thrown up at you, Mick, that you've logistically getting something to somebody on time when they needed it? It's not all gone perfect, has it?
No. I mean, like, we're in the business of serious stuff, right? It's like, when people design stuff on our platform, it's usually for a really important thing. It's Microsoft designing product for a big product launch. It's someone designing stuff for a grand final. It's the start of season. It's maybe a brother who's running with his family for his sister who died of cancer. I mean, it's serious stuff, right? So if you're late, you've really screwed the customer. And that was one of the bugbears I had in the industry. Was a lot of companies were delivering products late, and that was okay. So we take that very serious. But I mean, we are constantly chasing shipments. We have a team of people who are chasing shipments and tracking them from all over the world all the time, because it's so important for us. We want to be ahead of the curve for the customer, and also making sure that our system and backbone is constantly communicating to the customer through the process of their order, from when they've placed it to when it's started stitching to when it's been created and shipped. So if there is any problems, they know well ahead of time to communicate to us if it's potentially going to be late. And our default score is not 100%, and don't think it will ever be 100%. I'd love that to happen, but I just doubt it will, because we push the envelope. But it's about also treating the customer seriously if you have messed up. And we've had a lot of nightmares, yeah, for sure. So many. But no drastic ones, because we've always literally done whatever is needed. I mean, I've organised taxi drivers I've known in other cities of Australia and overseas to go to an airport, get on a plane, with a box of goods somewhere to another city to make sure a customer gets their order. We've done crazy stuff. Michael might even have a couple of our stories. I don't know, or maybe you haven't been on our account for so long. But we've had crazy stories. We treat it really seriously because, as I said, if people don't get their products, it's not just a a pair of socks they're hoping to wear next week. It's serious stuff.
All right. I'm not going to say a final thank you because we will open it up to audience questions. I think there are a couple of roving mics. If anybody has any questions for the panel, please put your hand up, as we have one right here. There we go, just in the second row.
Thank you. I'd just like to know from the panel, when have your businesses experienced like an unexpected spike in volumes, and how have you coped with that, or sales? How have you come to work and then all of a sudden you've had all these sales? What have you done?
Me first. Yeah, I think that, get the grandma. Well, in saying that, I'm very careful with the people that I hire. So I'm the worst interviewer. There has been times where I'll just pull anyone out from the street to come and work for me. I really hire people on personality and people that are flexible. Like sometimes, my staff will say, I don't even know what my role is here. What am I doing this for? Because you need flexible staff. You don't need a lot of staff. I have the smallest team, but everyone in there can do every part of the business almost. So I know that if someone's sick, I've got someone to cover. And you just do what you have to do. Like there are days where, again, someone might be sick and you just have to push through, and it's going to be a really hard day. And you just have to know that it may not be consistent. So I think the biggest mistake you can make is go, oh my God, this business is just flying and we're going to be doing 30% more. I mean, that's great if it happens, but you have to be realistic and not say, I'm going to go hire a bunch of people. So really work hard while that's happening and just make sure, because sometimes it can just be a seasonal thing. It can be, a lot of our stuff is Facebook advertising. It can be that within that month, not a lot of people are advertising, so you get a better return on investment, and the next month's not the same story. So, I think my answer to that is you just have to work hard and get through it when it happens.
And Paul, on a bigger scale, I mean, how do you manage those peaks and troughs at Showpo?
Yeah, so for us, peaks would be the cyber weekend, obviously, is the relevant one at the moment, which is, creating November is this bigger month than December now. So Black Friday and Cyber Monday, the volume is enormous and it spikes. And it's hard to forecast because there's not much data behind it. There's only a couple of years of data behind it. So, the answer is get really good at forecasting. Make sure you learn and get it right. Get your order volumes right. Make sure you can scale your server so that the site can handle the traffic and the labour as well. So for us, again, it comes down to, we wanted to have control over our labour to make sure that on those days we're there till midnight picking orders rather than cutting off at 2 or 3 and saying, tough. So we, without going into too much detail, our DC, our warehouse is structured in a way that there's, we try and employ full-time people, but we have some casuals, and then we also always have a component of labour hire which can turn on and off very, very quickly, but just forecast accurately as best you can.
Yeah, echo a lot of that. I mean, for us, we've been in business 6 years now. We've been growing really quickly each year, and with new programs and new categories, it does change. But I think preparation is always key, learning off the past. And for us, it's about there's a lot to manage. Where we manufacture in Australia, we manufacture in China, manufacture in Pakistan. We've got to be aware of global holidays, fabric delays, and then labour delays, and then peaks and troughs. But it's we're getting to a real good understanding now of our yearly our business and what it does in each market, so we can really prepare. And just having people empowered to understand, and people in customer service who know that each team leader can operate X amount of orders under management. And we're in a tough business because we're constantly making orders to order. At any point in time, there's a couple of thousand orders under management, and the orders are difficult in our business to manage because they've got factories and fabric mills and stuff. So preparation's key, and then a real good upscale plan. So I've just got really smart staff now who help me with that. We were on Shark Tank 2 years ago, and that blew up our site, which was great. It didn't crash, but it was super busy and a lot of orders, and we just had a massive backlog and just made it happen and filled it. But We're now integrated with Officeworks, and that we have a massive upscale plan because they're one of the top websites in Australia. So yeah, preparation is the theme.
Good. Any questions? Another question in the audience? There you go, right at the front row, beside the lady in the DHL shirt.
Yeah, I guess to the panel. When you first started exporting, did you know much about customs, duties, and taxes?
We knew a little bit, and that's based on our account manager giving us advice on what countries do certain things. So, for instance, the USA has a really high threshold that you can, sell a lot to, and they don't have that. But it's going to be something that you just work out as you go along. So you might not even know in the beginning which country is going to do really well for you. Maybe something you're completely surprised about. So I think definitely do the research for that, and the account managers help with that sort of thing. But you'll work out which countries, and if the order size is worth it, you want to pay their duties and taxes for them. So you just need to implement that in pricing as well if it's something that you're going to do. There's lots of ways to go around that.
Mike, anything to add? Is it a minefield?
It's pretty scary for the retailers because they're often they might be creative, entrepreneurial, startup type people, and they don't stop to consider that all of a sudden I can take an order from Canada and I'm going to have to potentially consider covering a cost of duties and taxes going into Canada, and maybe if I don't consider doing that, I'm not going to get the sale in the first place. So I guess from our side, we've got a real task here to educate, help them look at their traffic, where their traffic's coming from, get an idea of, okay, look, you've got high potential to take a sale in this country, and there's also a high potential that there's going to be some duties and tax costs to that as well. So how are you going to consider that? Have you got room within the margin of your product to cover it? Are you going to pass off to the customer? If you do that, what's the experience like to the consumer of doing that versus you covering the cost of it? So, there is a lot to consider, and as I say, we have a really important role to play that we guide them on that.
Just following on from that, though, we talk about the US, the UK, all the aforementioned places, but where do you believe there's real ripe market for Australian e-commerce businesses to start exporting to and doing business with?
I don't know that there's one specific market, to be honest. I think as soon as you've got a website, your shop front is open to every country in the world. I think that you've got your traditionals, like New Zealand's by far still a huge opportunity for all Australian retailers because it's so close, obviously. The US, there's 320 odd million of them straight away, so that's a huge opportunity. The UK, those type of consumers are used to buying overseas and used to looking at places like Australia to buy from. Maybe some of the less traditional, like places like the UAE and Qatar in the Middle East, these countries that have a lot of expat community, a lot of low tax or no tax income are coming up as opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. And do you at Showpo, go ahead,
Sorry,
Natasha.
I just wanted to add to that as well. I think that a lot of people now overseas, what you said, they're used to it. So it's not so much that it's going to be a huge surprise to them. And I think it's something that you just, as you're going along, you are going to learn. You're going to see what feedback you get. So as I was saying to you, Canada is not too bad, even though they get a lot of customs, but they don't seem to complain that much. And I think it's because they are used to paying that customs rate. And then it's probably, a little maths project for you to work out of, are you going to make the price a little bit more and then say, will we pay the taxes? It's all relevant to who your customer is and what feedback you're getting from them.
Any other questions?
It's always the front row.
It is, but I'm actually not from DHL. I do want to know, is it just on that point, do you launch straight away to international markets, or do you test your product out, do a little bit of a minimum viable product? Do you kind of go in the local market first, or you just, Mike, to your point, is it you're open to the global market? What advice would you give?
So with my products in particular, I will just put it out everywhere. So I don't specifically say, well, I'm only going to sell this thing to Australia and see how it goes, because you never know if one product may not work for Australia, but overseas absolutely love it. So I think it's really important to just get it out there and launch everything straight away and just see what works for you. You'll be surprised of what things work in various countries. So don't have in your head that, okay, I'm only going to target these specific things. Just put it out everywhere and then work out what works for you, because every brand is so different.
Yeah, I think for us, it's we've been very very Australia focused, but organic overseas. So if we get a lot of organic traffic from overseas and orders from overseas, but not more than about 20%. But we're just at the point now which we're bedding down some serious partners in Australia and taking the bigger global leap, which will be seriously choosing markets and increasing budget for those, because there is a lot of considerations about time of day, customer service, languages, price. There's a lot to it. So we've as I said, about 20% of businesses export. But from getting that up towards 50%, we'll be choosing the markets a little bit more carefully, because it's hard for us, because a lot of people in the world play sport, a lot of people in the world want a really cool uniform, and they have an internet connection, and as long as their credit card works, they can be a customer. But it's a different thing to actually dominate that market. So we're starting to get a bit more focused and planned, because you can spread yourself too thin, and the market in dollar doesn't quite reach.
Look, if you have a question, please hold on to it. The panel will be out mingling, and you can ask them then. I could sit and talk about this stuff all day, as I'm sure you all can as well. You dream about all this stuff at night. But for now, a huge thank you to our panel, Natasha and Paul and Mick and Mike. Thank you.